On the 30th of September 2024, I uploaded a video on this channel called ProofChess.com has a cheating crisis. It's one of the biggest videos on my channel with almost 300,000 views, and in that video I explained how I suspected around 33% of my online opponents on chess.com in the rapid pool to be cheating. Not only was this a theory of mine that chess.com were completely incapable of finding and banning cheaters on their platform, but it was also confirmed by chess.com. I had a private interview with International Master Casacoli, who works on chess.com's fair play team, and he said that chess.com's ability to ban cheaters back in 2024 was very subpar. So in September of 2024, around 33% of my opponents were cheating. But what is it like now? Well, in my previous video, we went through 100 recent games I had played, and I put them into an Excel spreadsheet and manually reviewed every account I played to determine whether or not they were cheating. In today's video, I'll essentially be doing the same thing. I played 50 rapid games on both chess.com and Lichess with the sole intention of finding out how many cheaters I would verse, and if online chess had actually seen drastic improvements on how good their anti-cheats were. Before we do start though, I do want to mention a couple of things. Okay, the first thing that I need to note is that I played exactly the same on both platforms. I played the same openings, the same lines, and even played at the same time of day. So there shouldn't really be any reason to think that the data that I've collected is unreliable. The second thing to note is that this is specifically from my experience, and it represents quite a small percentage of all players who play online chess. I'm 2300 ELO, and I play rapid. This means that my findings are only accurate for people that are 2300 ELO and play rapid. If you feel that there's a big cheating problem at the 1200 ELO level of bullet, you might be right. And what I say in this video is not undermining your personal experience. It's also worth noting that these games were played within the last 3 months, so if you're watching this video in 2027, it might not apply. With that being said, across the last 100 games I've played across Lichess and chess.com, how many of my opponents were actually cheating? Up until now, everything that I've said has been written in a script and I've been reading off it. I usually do this for all of my videos, so it makes my editor's life a little bit easier and they're not cutting out so many things. But for the next couple of minutes, everything is just going to be me talking to you guys, tell you the results that I've found. And the results that I've found is that over the last 50 games on chess.com and over the last 50 games on Lichess, I didn't verse a single cheater. That is a drop from a 33% amount of cheaters to absolutely zero. This is the Excel spreadsheet that I made. It's pretty simple. It has my accuracy, my opponent accuracy, their rating, has their username with links, their account creation date, were they banned or were they cheating. I had a couple of people where I thought maybe, but I mean, the only reason I put this guy for maybe was because his rating was unstable and I thought he played very well. He played 98% accuracy, but I don't think at my level, 98% accuracy is an indicator that your opponent is cheating. For example, here, I played 98% accuracy, so, you know, it happens. I'll leave the link to this spreadsheet in the description below if you guys want to take a closer look at it. I'm sure some of you guys will be interested to make your own charts and whatnot. There are also 2 maybes over here. I think I was just especially tilted. On this day, I got 3 losses, 2 wins, and it's also maybe important to note that I didn't really fluctuate my ELO too much. You know, I've got a comparable amount of wins to losses in both Lichess and chess.com, so my rating did stay around 2300, so it wasn't dipping too much. But yeah, I got paired against 0 cheaters in the last 100 games, both on Lichess and chess.com. There was no difference. No one was cheating in the pool. Now the next question is, why does this happen? Why is nobody cheating now, but a couple of years ago, a lot of people were cheating? There are 2 main reasons for this, I think. I think that, first of all, chess has just dropped in popularity, at least online a little bit, since 2024. But I don't think that that is the main contributor. I think that contributes a little bit, but it doesn't contribute massively. I think what does contribute massively is just the advancements in anti-cheating technology that the chess world has seen over the last couple of years. I think these online platforms kind of just realized that chess was becoming unplayable in certain time controls because their anti-cheats were not good enough. And if people can't play on their websites, they can't make money off them. So I would go as far as to say that chess.com probably led the lines with a lot of this because they had a lot of monetary gain if they could fix the cheating problem on their platform. As far as individual things go, I don't think it's super progressive to actually discuss exactly what is causing people to cheat less. I think that just promotes people to be able to kind of circumvent the system and cheat more. So I don't think that's really a topic that I want to discuss today, but you might be wondering, damn, this is a very short video. We're like, what, 3-4 minutes in? Does the video just end here? In my last video, I kind of went through a bunch of things, a bunch of the reasons that I thought people were cheating, but I don't have that for this video because I don't think anyone's cheating. I could go through all of my games and show you how legit my opponents are. I feel like that doesn't make too much sense. So I thought, you know, to actually have an upload today, I was going to add something onto the end of this video, because I feel like we've come full circle here. I feel like the first time I ever made a cheating video, it was a pretty big one, and it was me just kind of talking to you guys and just explaining my experiences with cheating online and how much it affects the way I play. Now we've gone full circle to where that problem just doesn't exist anymore for me. Maybe it exists in some other areas of online chess where maybe there's a problem in Bullet, I don't really know. Actually, I do know. I play Bullet at the 2300 level as well, and I don't really see any cheaters there, although I haven't done kind of an independent study like I have here. I have this old video that I wasn't actually planning on releasing. I had it edited and everything. I had the full video written and recorded, but I just didn't really want to release it. It's a video on how you guys can see cheaters in your own games with the current climate of chess cheating, where they don't really cheat, and if your opponents are cheating, it's impossibly difficult to tell. For example, if I go through all of the players that I've played against recently that are cheating, which is next to none, but if I really go back through all of the games, I actually can't tell in individual games if my opponents were cheating or not. And I think maybe it's a valuable thing for you guys to see. I also don't really want that video to go to waste. So I hope all of you guys enjoy the rest of this video where I go through how to identify cheaters in this new era of chess. With all that being said, we can start today's videos with some easier tells that your opponent is cheating. We'll kind of jump back and forth between Lichess and chess.com as well, because I think it's important to distinguish the differences between the two websites. So the first thing that you'll want to do is check the account creation date of your opponent. Essentially, the more recently the account was made, the higher the likelihood is that they're cheating. Put it this way, if your opponent has had their account since 2015, do you really think they'd be able to cheat undetected for 10 whole years? Better yet, even if you played legitimately for 10 years, what incentive would you have to start cheating now? The vast majority, which is essentially 99% of older accounts, will not be cheating. However, newer accounts are the opposite. At my rating level of around 2,300, the majority of the cheaters that I verse are accounts made within the last 12 months. This seems like a crazy statistic, but when you actually think about it, it's not so unreasonable. If a player has gone from 0 to 2,300 elo in less than 12 months, the likelihood is they're either on an alt account, which is against the terms of service of both websites, or they're cheating. It's extremely unlikely that anyone can reach 2,300 elo in 12 months, and you guys can apply that same logic to your rating as well. If you're 1,600 elo, for example, and your opponent's account is just 4 months old, do you really think it was realistic for them to achieve that rating in just 4 months? It might be possible, but the likelihood is still very low. On chess.com and Lichess, all you have to do to find out this information is click on your opponent's username, and the account creation date will pop up for you to see. The next thing we need to look at is win rates. Again, like account creation date, we could even do this before the game starts. Let's use my own account as an example. Just click on Rapid and set the time to the last 90 days. Then we can scroll down and see I've won 32% of my games, drawn 18%, and lost 50%. This kind of win rate would suggest that your opponent is not cheating. Let's also take a look at some of my opponents that I've versed lately. User A has won 49% of his games, drawn 10%, and lost 42%. An overall decent win rate, which doesn't indicate any foul play. His account was made in December 2023, so over 2 years old, which doubles up on our previous point. User B has won 40%, drawn 9%, and lost 51%, a clear indication that this player is not cheating, as why would you cheat to lose more games than you win over a 90-day period? This account was also made in February 2023, over 3 years old again, so it backs up our previous point. User C has a slightly suspicious win rate of 58%, with just 7% of games drawn and 35% of games lost. It must be said though, high win rates like this could also indicate your opponent is just playing on a second account, which again is against the rules, and you should be getting your elo back for this game anyway. However, it should be no surprise this account is only 6 months old. User D has a high win rate of 67%. He draws 7% of the time and loses 26% of the time. Again, another suspiciously high win rate, but also could be because he's playing on a second account. Again, you guys can hedge your bets on how old this account is. It's 2 months old. Finally, user E with a very normal win rate of 45% of games won, 10% drawn, and 45% lost. This player is almost certainly not cheating. Want to try and guess how old this account is? 7 years old. Very unlikely that this player is cheating. It must be said that if you're something like 1000 elo, you should lower the time frame to the last 30 days, as it is very possible to shoot up a lot in elo and get a lot better a lot faster. However, it's pretty unreasonable to think a 2300 rated player can win 71% of their games without cheating, or playing on a second account which is much lower rated than their real playing strength. We cannot use this in isolation though. If somebody has 71% of their games won, this this is not proof of them cheating. It's just another indicator, and we should always look for more. By the way, the same process is very straightforward on Lichess. Just go to the player's profile and click on Rapid. Then click on the 3M button and scroll down to see their win percentages. We can see mine is 51% wins, 6% draws, and 42% losses, a win rate that suggests I've just been playing well over the last 3 months. Now, if we still think that our opponent is cheating and we want to run some more tests, what should we do? Well, now we should check their game accuracies. Generally, for high-rated players, you should not look out for extremely high accuracies. High-level cheaters are smart and will only cheat when they have to, lowering their overall accuracies. We want to look for consistent mid-range accuracies to confirm our suspicion. Let's use those same 5 accounts as our examples and see if any of them pass the test. The first example, user A, who we did not suspect to be cheating, has the following accuracies: 64, 85, 89, 76, 86, 86, 79, 63, 89, 98, 95, 81, 82, 75, 78, and 71. On average, this is 81.06% accuracy. Doesn't seem too high. We'll compare this to our other examples. For user B, I won't go through every single accuracy, but I will put them on screen. All in all, this average turns out to be 84% accuracy across all of these games. Again, seems relatively similar to user A, so we can move on. User C, who we thought was either cheating or playing on a second account, scored like this. This user's average accuracy ends up being 85%. This isn't overly suspicious, but multiple games played at near perfect accuracy is slightly alarming. User D, who was another player we thought could be cheating, had these accuracies. The average accuracy here again mirrors user C at around 86% accuracy across all of these games. Now let's look at user E, who we thought wasn't cheating. It's no surprise that in another account we did not suspect of cheating, their accuracy was only 81% across these games. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that suspicious accounts are continuously suspicious across all of these 3 categories. They have accounts made within the last 12 months, they have suspiciously high win rates, and they have suspiciously high accuracies on average. Again, none of this is enough to prove that somebody was cheating, so let's move on. It's also important that we pay attention to other time controls that these players frequent. For example, if somebody is 2300 rapid but loses to players that are 1600 elo and blitz, this should be suspicious. Let's see if this is the case for any of our examples. User A is 2281 rapid on chess.com, but they don't play blitz. However, they play some bullet. They're 2067 rated there, winning 47% of their games and losing 50%. This seems relatively normal, as they're probably just a few hundred elo worse when they don't have time to think. User B doesn't play any other time controls, so we don't have any data on them whatsoever. User C, who is a player we thought was suspicious at 2312 rapid, doesn't play any other time control, so we don't have additional data on them either. User D, who we thought could have been cheating, has a blitz rating of 2400, winning 46% of games and losing 47%. Again, this leads me to believe the likelihood is they're playing on an alternate account, playing against rapid players much lower than their playing strength. Finally, user E, like user B, does not play any other time controls, so there's no data to go off at all. Well, by adding another test, we were able to conclude that user D was probably not cheating and probably just using an alt account. Alternate accounts are specifically disallowed for this exact reason. You simply won't win against them because they're not the rating that they claim to be. Not to mention, they read false positives when it comes to deciding if they're a cheater or not as well. But it's useful to know this is a good way of deciphering whether or not somebody is cheating or just using an alt account. There is one final test that we can run, and it's game phase accuracy. Typically, cheaters will decide to cheat at a given point in the game. Maybe they'll cheat in the opening to get a good position, and then play legitimately. Maybe they'll play by themselves and use the engine to get out of a losing position. This is usually very easy to detect. We can go into the game review and see the accuracy by game phase. For higher rated players, this doesn't really work, as good players play exceptionally well across all 3 game phases, so we can't add it to our test. But if you're lower rated, I can show you what the game phase accuracy looks like. The blue is me, and yellow is players around my rating. If your opponents are scoring significantly higher accuracies on average in these 3 game phases, it could definitely be an indicator that they're cheating. For our examples though, they were all too high rated, and this isn't as useful. So with all of this information, we were able to rule out users A, B, D, and E. We're fairly sure that they weren't cheating, and user D was probably just using an alt account. But how do we dive deeper on players like user C to see if they were really cheating? Well, it's important to note that this isn't exactly your job. If you've made it this far, you've done your due diligence, movements, and you should report the player. Using this process probably increases your accuracy in your reports tenfold as well. Chess.com and Lichess's anti-cheat should do the heavy lifting from here. But let's say you wanted to know for yourself. How can we tell that user C was cheating? Well, now we have to do more than just an account overview and have to look at one of their actual games. First, I'm going to analyze the game in full, and I'll see if you guys can find the only sign in this player's games that they were cheating. Once we do the game review, I'll show you guys what I mean. So it's important to note that this player was actually cheating on chess.com, so, you know, the game is not, was this player cheating or not? This player was cheating, but I want you guys to find the exact moment that I was able to tell that this player was cheating in this specific game. I'm not going to give you guys any hints, I'm just going to go through the game and see if you can find the move. So we start with d4 and e6. This is the Horitz defense, usually going into a French when white plays e4. Their opponent plays the London system though, and we get d5, e3, and c5. This is a very common opening, looks all fine now. I think generally with these higher rated players, because they know theory, it's impossible to tell out of the opening if they're cheating. That's a little hint for you. So we get c3, we get knight c6, bishop d3, bishop d6, bishop g3, and knight f6, so we have good development from both sides right now. It's pretty even. You guys can see the evaluation bar, it's over here, so we'll get to see if it goes up or down at any given moment. Knight f3 is played, queen e7, just getting the queen off of the back rank and trying to connect the rooks long term. Knight bd2 is played, developing the final piece for white. Now they only have castling to go. It is important to note that there is a decent gap in elo between these two players, but that has nothing to do with how you decipher if black was cheating in this game. The elo gap is kind of insignificant in my opinion. So black ends up playing e5, the best move. A tricky move to find, I think, but you know, as a 2,300 rated player, definitely not an impossible one. D takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, bishop takes e5, and queen takes e5. So a big trade-off in the center there. We get castles from both sides, and knight f3, attacking the queen for white. So now we get queen e7, getting the queen out of danger. H3 is played, making a luff for the king. Maybe just a waiting move. White really not sure what to do here. And black follows suit. A very human move, this move, H3. Is it the one the engine suggests? No, it's not the one the engine suggests. It's the third top engine move, but a very human move nonetheless, especially when you're not really sure what you want to be achieving in the position yet. So rook e1 is played. Again, just a very straightforward developing move from white, I should say. We get rook d8, centralizing the rook, putting it on the same file as the queen. Rook c1 is played, activating another piece, maybe thinking that one of these files might open up eventually. We get knight e4, activating the knights, and maybe teasing the trade to make some kind of imbalance on the board. Then it would be knight versus bishop. If you want to win a game against a lower rated player, a good way to do it is to keep imbalances on the board. You don't want to end up in a symmetrical structure. White plays queen e2, a very solid move. b6 is played to try and fianchetto the bishop. Bishop b1, dropping the bishop back, and we get rook d6. Now we've got rook lifting opportunities here to try and get more pieces in the game. So rook cd1, moving the rook a second time, bishop e6, developing the bishop, knight d2, and we've still got a long time in this game, so I might skip forward a little bit faster. Rook 88, another improving move. Takes, 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 and we get a big trade of pieces, and this tactic at the end of the game, or not at the end of the game, but at the end of the sequence, to win back the pawn. Now you are discovering an attack on the bishop. They have to drop back, and black can drop back their bishop as well. So we've got a trade of rooks, although if white does this trade of rooks, it is most certainly only going to be a beneficial game for black, considering they have the majority on this side of the board. So maybe that is why they avoid it for quite a while in this game. This is a cool little move as well. You cannot take this bishop without blundering the rook on the other side. So a tricky little move here with bishop c4. It's important to note I haven't been paying too much attention to the time spent on each move, so I hope you guys are as well. Maybe it's important. Bishop c4, queen d1, and we get this nice move again. They cannot take because their queen hangs, and they cannot take, of course, because their rook hangs. So a little double sacrifice there, just kind of teasing the game around. H5, an improving move for black, just incrementally improving things. Always want to try and do something in the game rather than just shuffle our pieces back and forth. Bishop d1, black does not want the trade. Again, just moving pieces up the board. This is very human. This move again, bishop b3, shuffling pieces around and making slight progress in the position. And black finally gets what they want. They get the open file, and white now cannot go queen d1 because the bishop sits here. The king moves back, a4, and we're making slow progress over this side of the board. Bishop b4, maybe one of the only mistakes that white has made so far, affording black a negative 0.7 advantage. We get queen e5, which is the wrong way to capitalize on it, actually. You're supposed to play queen e5. Queen e6, sorry, queen e6 is slightly better. It's a little bit difficult to understand why it's better. I think it has something to do with the control across this diagonal. But queen e5 and queen d3, and now we get this move b5. You cannot take because this hangs, and this would be kind of lights out. You don't want to lose your bishop. And the fact is, these pawns are coming. So this majority for black is ending up being very good for them. Bishop f3, and now you can see the majority is coming. You can sacrifice the bishop here even, and you'll make another queen. And the game ends very swiftly. I think you guys kind of can see how the game might end from here. So yeah, black is going to get a checkmate, and black is going to win. So now I'm going to go through the only indication in this entire game that I thought was very obvious, or not even very obvious. I thought it was the only proof from an analytical standpoint in this game that black might have been cheating. On move 17, user C plays the move b6. On its own, this is a natural looking move, but it's the moves that follow that don't make any sense. Obviously, the point of playing b6 is to fianchetto the light squared bishop. The c5 pawn is not under attack, so if this weren't the idea, it would be a wasted turn. But after bishop b1 from white, which is played by white in 4 seconds, user C does not follow up with the intuitive bishop b7, but instead rook d6. It's important to note rook d6 came just 9 seconds after bishop b1. If rook d6 came 60 seconds after bishop b1, you could argue user C was calculating and changed plans because of some kind of realization. So there was only 15 seconds since b6 was played, and user C, for whatever reason, has determined bishop b7 is no longer optimal. You might argue that user C understands there's no rush for b7 and can play it later, but after rook d1 from white, which was played in 5 seconds, user C spends 29 seconds playing bishop e6, abandoning bishop b7 despite it being a completely working idea. This is typically a sign of cheaters just playing the second, third, or fourth top engine move during their games to avoid suspicion. You might argue that sometimes players just make weird moves. They abandon previous plans all the time due to a number of things, and that's completely true. And to be quite honest, that's why it's so difficult to determine if someone was cheating in one single game without using real statistics. Although user C was banned by chess.com, it's very unclear to me if they were cheating in that specific game that we looked at. I looked at a lot of games on that user's account, and there wasn't much indication that they were actually cheating. They played natural looking moves, and it wasn't blatant whatsoever. Moral of the story is, I wanted to show you guys how difficult it is to catch an actual cheater at this high level of chess. People have become so incredibly good at cheating nowadays that you will not find out if they were cheating unless you really go digging for it. Instead, you should rely solely on statistics. If your opponent has any pair of the following, like a win rate of over 55%, an account made within the last 12 months, an average accuracy of 85% or more, or suspicious game phase accuracy, it is likely that they are cheating. Any pair of 2 of those red flags indicate that your opponent is cheating, they're on an alt account, or they are playing exceptionally well. If a player cheats in one game, the likelihood is they have cheated in multiple. So you're much more likely to get reliable results by looking at their account across the board rather than the game that they played against you. Other than that, I hope you all not only enjoyed the video, but walk away with a better idea of how to catch a cheater in your own games. Let me know your experiences in the comments below, but apart from that, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.